This is an ordinary-looking road in New Jersey, a mile and a half of strip malls, traffic lights, and parking lots, about 20 miles from Manhattan. But drive down it slowly, and something starts to feel different. The signs are in Hindi and Gujarati and Tamil. The windows are stacked with so much gold jewelry that the glass itself seems to glow. There are more than 400 businesses packed onto this single strip. And above all of those shops, on screens in tens of thousands of homes all around it, the same television channel is playing. A channel that this entire community grew up watching, and almost nobody driving past has any idea that the man who owns that channel arrived in this country with nothing in his pockets, built a business empire most people have never heard of, and quietly became one of the most powerful Indian Americans in the entire state. This is the story of Little India, and the man who became its king. By the end of this video, you will understand how a quiet corner of Edison and Iselin became the single most Indian neighborhood in all of America. You will meet a man from a tiny village who became the first Indian on earth to own an entire chain of stores. And you will see how he went from driving a rented limousine to controlling the screen that an entire community watches every single night. Stay with me, because this is not a story about a loud fortune. It is a story about quiet power. And quiet power is always the most interesting kind. To understand the man, you first have to understand the place, because there is nowhere else in America quite like it. The road is called Oak Tree Road. It runs for about a mile and a half straight through two towns, Edison and a neighboring section of Woodbridge called Iselin. For most of its history, this was sleepy, ordinary suburban New Jersey. Then, starting in the 1970s, Indian immigrants began to arrive, a few shops at a time. And slowly, that ordinary road turned into something extraordinary. Today, more than 400 South Asian businesses are crowded onto that single strip. Restaurants, sweet shops, sari boutiques, grocery hauls the size of supermarkets, and above all else, gold. Block after block of jewelry stores selling the heavy 22-karat gold that Indian families buy for weddings. The demand is so intense that in 2023, Tanishq, one of India's biggest luxury jewelry brands, chose this exact road for its very first store in the entire United States. A year later, another giant, Kalyan Jewelers, opened here too. They did not choose Manhattan, they chose Oak Tree Road, and the people followed the businesses. In the heart of Iselin, the census found that 42.6% of all residents identify as Asian Indian. Let that sink in. That is the single highest concentration of Indian Americans of any place its size in the entire country. There is no neighborhood in America more Indian than this one. The retail space is so valuable now that business owners pay what one local leader called not just a premium, but a super premium just to get a storefront on this road. So this is the stage. The richest, densest, most concentrated stretch of Indian wealth in America. And to understand who rules a place like this, you have to forget what you think wealth looks like. Because the most powerful man in Little India did not get there by being the loudest. He got there by buying the things nobody else thought to buy. His name is Hasmukh Shah, though almost everyone simply calls him H.R. Shah. His story begins about as far from a glowing gold storefront as you can imagine. He was born in a small village called Bahadurpur in the state of Gujarat in western India. He was, by every account, a penniless young man. There was no family fortune, there was no inheritance waiting for him. In 1971, with financial help scraped together from friends and relatives, he did what millions of others only dreamed of. He boarded a plane and came to the United States. He arrived with almost nothing but the belief that this country would give him a chance. And here is the part most people get wrong about immigrant success stories. It almost never starts with a big idea. It starts with a job nobody else wants. For Shah, that job was driving. He started a small limousine service, and for about 2 years, he drove. He learned the roads of New Jersey and New York from behind the wheel of a rented car. He watched how business worked in America from the front seat, ferrying other people to the places they were going. It is hard to imagine a humbler beginning for a man who would one day receive one of India's highest civilian honors from the hands of a president. But that is exactly where it started. A village in Gujarat and the front seat of a limousine. From driving, he moved into deals. He started a brokerage business, helping fellow Indian immigrants buy and sell businesses, find their footing, and put down roots in a new country. And it was there, in that world of small deals and storefronts, that he spotted the opportunity that would change everything. In the early 1990s, one of New Jersey's largest convenience store chains was in trouble. The chain was called Krauszer's. For decades, its little food stores had stretched across New Jersey and the surrounding region, a familiar name on countless street corners. But by 1991, the company was struggling, and thousands of jobs were on the line. Most investors looked at a failing store chain and saw a problem. Shah looked at it and saw a future, so he bought it. Through his company, he took over Krausser's, and in doing so, he made history. According to those who have tracked his career, H.R. Shah became the first non-resident Indian, the first NRI, to own an entire chain store business anywhere in the world. Not the first in New Jersey, not the first in America, the first on the entire planet. A man who had arrived 20 years earlier with borrowed money now owned a piece of American retail that stretched across an entire region. But here is the part that tells you who he really is. That acquisition saved more than 1,000 jobs. And Shah did not just keep the stores running, he used them as a launch pad for his own community. He put hundreds of fellow immigrants, families from India and other ethnic communities into the business of owning and running those convenience stores. He did not just build a fortune, he built a ladder, and then he held it steady so that others could climb it too. One man's success quietly became a doorway for hundreds of families. Now let me stop here for 1 second because we are right in the middle of this story, and I want to ask you something. Had you ever heard the name H.R. Shah before this video? Most people, even people who have walked up and down Oak Tree Road 100 times, have not. That is the whole point. Drop a comment and let me know if this name was new to you, because what he did next is the reason an entire community knows his work, even if they have never once heard his name. By the mid-1990s, Shah had money, and he had proven he could take a struggling business and turn it around. He could have simply collected his stores and lived comfortably for the rest of his life. Instead, he made a move that almost no one else would have made. He decided to buy a television channel. The channel was called TV Asia. It had been launched back in 1993, originally tied to none other than the Bollywood superstar Amitabh Bachchan. It was meant to be a South Asian channel for audiences across the world, but by the time Shah looked at it, it was struggling. The viewership was thin. The future was uncertain. It was, in a way, another Krausser's. A good idea that needed a believer with the patience to fix it. In 1997, H.R. Shah bought TV Asia, and then he did what he had always done. He went to work. He poured his resources into it. He built proper broadcast studios right here in Edison, New Jersey. Today, that operation is a 40,000 square foot facility with multiple modern live studios, technical operations, and offices sitting in the heart of the same community it serves. From those studios in Edison, Shah turned a struggling channel into the most trusted and influential South Asian television network in all of North America. News, culture, festivals, Bollywood, politics, all of it flowing out of central New Jersey and into the homes of a community that had been hungry for a screen that finally reflected their own lives. Hundreds of thousands of viewers tuned in. For an entire generation of Indian Americans on the East Coast, TV Asia was simply part of the furniture of home. Think about what that actually means. The gold shops on Oak Tree Road sell to the community. The restaurants feed the community. But H.R. Shah owns the screen the community looks at. He doesn't just sell to Little India. He helped shape how Little India sees itself and how India and America talk to each other across an ocean. That is a different kind of wealth entirely. That is influence. And the establishment noticed. In 2005, Shah received the Ellis Island Medal of Honor, an award given to immigrants who have made significant contributions to the United States. Then, in 2017, came the big one. The government of India awarded him the Padma Shri, the country's fourth highest civilian honor. He received it for his work in media and education, for building bridges between India and the United States. A man who had once driven a limousine through New Jersey now stood and accepted a national honor from the President of India himself. He is also the chairman of the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan in the United States, one of the most important Indian cultural organizations in the country. So here is the honest question: how rich is he? And here is the honest answer: nobody outside his family really knows. Unlike the billionaires who land on magazine lists every year, H.R. Shah has never once put a public number on his own fortune. There is no Forbes ranking. There is no flashy net worth figure to put on the screen. And that, more than anything, is the point of this entire story. His power was never about a number you could brag about. It was about what he controlled: a retail empire, a television network, a cultural institution, and the respect of two entire nations. In Little India, that makes him royalty, whether a magazine ever measures it or not. And once you see his story, you start to see the bigger pattern behind this whole corner of New Jersey. Because Shah is not an accident. He is the clearest example of a much larger machine. New Jersey did not become the capital of Indian American wealth by chance. This small state sits at the dead center of the American pharmaceutical industry, packed with laboratories and corporate campuses. So when waves of highly educated Indian immigrants, scientists, pharmacists, engineers came to America, this is exactly where the jobs were. They came for the labs, and they stayed, and they built communities like Iselin right around them. Some of them built quiet fortunes in medicine. Others followed a different famous path, buying roadside motels one at a time until Indian American families came to own a staggering share of every hotel in the entire country. And a few, like Shah, built their empires in retail and in media and in culture. Zoom all the way out, and the scale of it is almost hard to believe. In 2025, 12 Indian Americans made the Forbes list of the wealthiest people in the entire country, with a combined fortune of around $55 billion. In a single generation, a community that mostly arrived with suitcases and student visas became one of the richest in the entire nation. And a huge share of that story runs straight through New Jersey, through roads exactly like Oak Tree Road. But of all of them, there is something about the man who owns the screen. Because money can be inherited, a fortune can be handed down, but the kind of trust that makes an entire community watch your channel, eat near your studios, and treat you as one of their own elders, that has to be earned, one decade at a time. H.R. Shah spent more than 50 years earning it. From a village in Gujarat, to the front seat of a limousine, to the first Indian on earth to own a chain of stores, to the owner of the most important South Asian network in America. All of it built in the same handful of towns, for the same community that almost never says his name out loud. So the next time you find yourself driving past an ordinary-looking road in New Jersey, a mile and a half of strip malls and glowing gold windows that most people never even notice, look a little closer, because that road might just be Oak Tree Road. And somewhere behind those storefronts, in a 40,000 square foot studio, the quietest king in Little India is still at work, still building, still betting on the same community he bet on the day he arrived with nothing. If stories like this one fascinate you, the people quietly building empires in plain sight, then make sure you subscribe, because this is exactly what this channel is all about. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.